just focusing on the stats and abilities of the characters. We're actually managing their psychology and their mental health throughout their combat careers. In order to do that right and to do it with dignity, we've worked with a couple of organizations, one of which, as I mentioned before, is TIGS and Dr. B, who's advising us from a clinical psychology standpoint. The other is Spartan Wellness, who's a Canadian Forces Veterans Support Group. And I'm very lucky to be joined here today by Riyad Bine and JC. And maybe introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what Spartan does and how you guys are working with us.
Yeah, Riyad Bine, I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Spartan Wellness. JC is a good Army friend of mine, and we're with Spartan Wellness. So basically what we do is we support veterans, first responders and their families with a gambit of services, mainly introduction to proper quality medical cannabis, oral treatments when it comes to topical pain creams, as well as mental health, and guidance through a lot of the administrative burdens that veterans and first responders face with getting the support they need when it becomes financial or bio or physical assistance.
Okay. So what I'll do, first of all, I'll show a little bit about the... Oh, nice. This is great.
Just blacked out.
I just got a blue screen of death on my computer here.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Uh-oh.
And it wants to collect more information. No, I don't think you do. I think we'll just hard restart you.
This should take no time at all.
do we have somebody that knows this stuff? I'll let you know in a second. We'll see if we can get this back on. In the meantime, I'll sort of... Yeah, thanks. We'll go back to that screen. In the meantime, I'll just sort of, I guess, get you guys to maybe talk a little bit about some of the involvement with the game. So we started writing some of the scripts of some of the characters and looking at some of the scenarios, and then we brought it to a collection of the veterans who work with you guys to sort of get their take on it and sort of get an idea of how both realistic and how representative it sort of was of some of the things you've seen. Do you want to maybe, Riyad, maybe just sort of talk us through a little bit about some of our meetings and how that kind of went while we're ad-libbing here a bit while I try and get this thing restarted.
Blue screen of death.
Delay.
Well, you know, Ken, we met through some mutual friends. I was first introduced to the game about 1.5 years ago through Ken and again through some acquaintances. And right away we realized that there was some symmetry there with what he was trying to accomplish as far as giving people an exposure to not just the fun game part of like shooting them up and everything, but also there is a reality of combat, there is a reality of war, there is a reality of trauma. And so when we talked about it, and it wasn't too hard of a decision to say we'd love to help consult and support you. And just to add with Spartan Wellness is we're 9 veteran co-founders with over 300 years of combined service, 87 missions overseas from Somalia right up to the recent Afghanistan and so forth. So it was a pretty, we were grateful actually to be considered, and we've been working with Ken now for the last 1.5 years at certain sequences and events to help supply the realities of combat. And you know, JC being a 16-year Special Forces medic / physician assistant, he can speak a lot more to it actually, the reality of it, being on the front lines more so than I could. So it was easy for us to jump on board and support and help him design the engines that work so fine, you know, in engaging the characters and everything.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're back up, so I think we can...
Did I talk enough? Okay,
you did a great job. Thank you. So this is our pre-alpha... Oh, it's not got the audio yet. You good? All right. Is that... Oop, I'll let you... There we go. So this is our pre-alpha teaser trailer. It'll give a little bit of a flavor of the gameplay, and then I'll run through a quick demo. We are pre-alpha, which for all of you who are in the games industry know that's really early in the development stage. So it's the first time we've been able to show a full vertical slice of the game. So I'll let you have a quick watch of this. Oh. Go away. Stupid technology.
Nice.
So that's a little bit of our teaser of the gameplay, and I'll just show you a little more in depth about how we actually deal with some of the situations with the characters here. So it's going to run me through a tutorial, but I'll just sort of quit out of that and just sort of have a look through. One of the things that is really unique about the game is that you know, we start to have to really get to know the characters to understand how to put them in the best situations, but also how to kind of manage the different circumstances that they're going to go through. So we start off on this support ship where we have a bunch of different sections where we can do different things in the game, whether that's interact and recruit new characters, whether that's, you know, jump into combat missions, deal with the healing and the repairs of the characters and equipment after battle, that kind of thing, and some of the guild hall where we can talk to other players, that kind of thing. One of the things that we really focused on in the game was bringing people together, both as a team in the actual team of characters, but also as players. We really wanted to make sure that it was a cooperative, focused on cooperative and collaborative mechanics, as opposed to, you know, simply focusing on the competitive side of things. So success in the game is less about how much an individual can win in Horde and more about how much you can elevate everybody around you and contribute to your sort of community. So I'll just quickly jump into some of the gameplay side of things. It's going to be a really quick, brief demo here just to show you what it kind of looks like. To do that, I'll just go into the cheat mode here. So this will be what I'll be showing you here is a cooperative boss battle. So this would be actually 4 players would be fighting this battle all together, and I'm going to be sort of presuming all 4 stations here. But basically, you know, it's a game that forces you to kind of work together. So you've got, you know, one squad here who's got the capacity, if I jump over to them, got the capacity to take down the shield. They can disable the boss's shield. And then, you know, obviously he starts attacking the team that's doing the most damage, which is this sort of damage dealing team. So you've got to jump to this team, number 1, and actually taunt the boss back, try and get his attention back and get him looking at us, because as you can see, he starts knocking people down. And then another team over here can wind up stunning him when he's facing the wrong direction, and the final team over here can actually sort of heal people and keep bringing them back into the battle, putting shields on. So lots of different mechanics there that force the players to work together. There's also different weather conditions that'll affect the players. So there's, you know, time of day. So we've got full day-night cycles. So some missions, some characters will like to go out under the cover of darkness. Others won't feel comfortable in that environment. Same thing with the weather. Certain weather conditions even affect the equipment, so these electrical weapons will be less effective in the rain, but they might actually call in a big thunderbolt that'll take out your team, do damage to your team, and if that happens, then in subsequent missions, if the team starts hearing the thunder and they're holding an electrical weapon, we kind of get an inkling what they're going to feel like under that condition, that sort of thing. And same thing with we've got the snow. And we've also got things like a forest fire where if we all do cumulatively too much damage as players on the server in the environment, it'll actually start to have a lasting impact. So we can actually wind up setting fire to the forests so that we then play these missions in the forest fire conditions, which will have, you know, smoke inhalation issues for our characters that we'll have to deal with afterwards, but that'll also, the lack of visibility will make them a little more nervous, that kind of thing. And that's something that then affects everybody. There should be the cinders coming down. Not sure why they're not coming down on this build, but okay. They'll behave later on. But so it gives a little bit of an inkling of it, but I'm just actually going to restart this really quickly and just sort of talk through some of the other aspects of it that give us a bit of a signal that how the characters are sort of dealing with that. So I've got to reset the cheat mode here. So one of the things that the characters can do is that they can bark, they can talk to each other in so if I target the doctor here and get him shot, we'll notice that one of the characters barks up and goes, you know, do your job and protect the squad, and the other one says, you know, shut your yap and keep focused. So there's obviously a bit of tension going on between those two characters. And on this other team over here, if I, you know, drop an orbital strike on the boss, there's another character here that will sort of bark up and start talking, oh, you know, not the smell of explosives again. And then, you know, one other character tries to talk him back into the combat, you know, get it together, we need you. And one of the things we'll learn through the dialogue with the characters is that this character is suffering from PTSD from being caught in an explosion previously, and that he was in that explosion with his partner, so she's able to sort of reach him on you know, she's part of his support network, is able to help sort of bring him back around. So if you put them out together, you know, you'll mitigate the impacts of that. But if he was there on his own, he might become stunned, he might become overwhelmed by his sort of situation and miss a couple of turns if he didn't have that support network out there with him, that kind of thing. So we see those barks, we see performance indicator issues, but our main way of actually talking, sort of getting to the bottom of what's bugging the characters and getting to know them is actually dialoguing with them. So I'll sort of run through a couple of those here. And we'll get sort of Riyadh and JC to chime in on these a bit, because they've kind of had some resonance with some of these characters. So we'll sort of talk at Mag's situation first here, Riyadh, and you can tell us what it's like to actually dialogue with a character like this. So in Mag's particular case, the sort of things we'd have seen, we saw the sort of in the battle when there was that barking going on, she was one of those characters. So we see that she's having squabbles with her squad mates. In this particular case, we notice that there's a bruise on her cheek, so she's obviously been in a bit of a scuffle recently. And we'll also find that you know, her performance is erratic. There are sort of good days and then, you know, more bad days than good days. And so as we sort of dialogue through with her, you know, I'll run through the whole process in a second and get Riyadh to chime in. But the nutshell is basically she's suffering from addiction. So she's decided that in order to enhance her performance, she really needs these substances. She's pretty burned out herself. And our job as the player is to uncover that and then basically encourage her to seek treatment. Because in our game, the goal is to, you know, if your characters are dealing with something that's beyond their capacity to cope, our goal is to encourage them into treatment and support them through that process. So if they don't, we are a military sim, so we can order the characters into treatment, but it'll be substantially less effective if we do that than it will be if we're able to actually encourage them to do that of their own volition. And then on top of that, what we see is that there's a whole range of different conditions. In our initial release, we're going to sort of model 4 major conditions, which will be PTSD, depression, addiction, and anxiety. But at the same point, there will be a whole bunch of positive, things that we'll be interacting with the characters about. They may have just got a puppy. They may have sort of had a great night out with their friends, So one of the things we're trying to do is just sort of make that one of the storylines in these characters' lives, that there's a whole range of different things that we're going to be experiencing with these characters, both good and bad, and a whole bunch of reasons why we're going to be motivated to sort of, help them through these situations. So yeah, Riyad, I don't know if you want to kind of, as we talk through, or we can kind of go through some of the choices. I know when you first talked to Mag, you kind of treated her like one of your recruits, and you found that the best way to get through to her was to sort of give her a bit of a kick in the pants. But
so definitely a hard charger. She's about the mission. And she wants everybody else around her to be about the mission. You can get that from her when you're engaging in it. So, as a commander, you got to sort of understand how everybody interacts and how they engage with each other, right? So there's always going to be, in the military, we're all alphas. Whether you're female or male, you're all alphas, right? You're going out there and you're going to, and hopefully you don't have to, but you have to do the engagement of combat. So when you have a bunch of alphas together, there's always going to be one more alpha than the other alpha, and that can switch all the time, right? So definitely Mag, she's alpha. So you got to approach it sort of in her way, and you, as a leader, you almost have to make it clear that you're the bigger alpha at that moment, but at the same time respecting the person. So I remember when I engaged her during the game, I think I answered I went the wrong way, and then I heard a way I could catch. And which was really smart in the game, right? Like it made me realize, oh wait, I'm going the wrong way, and I had to sort of circle back and answer and engage in a more positive solution base that fits her character.
And that's one of the things we've done in the pre-alpha demo, is we've sort of created, sort of on the rails pass through some of these dialogues to sort of give people, because we only have sort of their attention for 2 minutes at these conventions to kind of, walk them through this. So we want to make sure they go through a range of positive and negative responses. And it's, there really is no right way. What's going to be right for one character will be different for another character. Some characters will want you to hold their hand. Others will want you to be very kind of hands-off. But as we talk to Mag about the argument that she's having with Jay, she gets progressively crosser as we confront her, so what's with the bruise on your cheek? Oh, it was nothing, just a bit of fun in the barracks kind of thing. And then, the further we get into it, and I'm going to kind of run through this, we will be able to get hands-on with it afterwards if anybody wants to try it out. But basically, as we keep drilling down into the thing, she'll get more and more cross, and we kind of ask her, what's going on. And as Riyad says, what we have to do is find out what this character's motivation is. So in Mag's case, she considers herself to be the protector of the squad. She's sort of the one who's the shield and bears the brunt for everybody else. So it's about appealing to that and saying, you think it may be helping, but what if it's actually hurting them? And that's when we'll start to really get her attention and get her to open up and get her to build up her trust level enough that we can then approach her with the options of getting into treatment and getting help. So I'm just going to sort of, again, even she's just stolen, Jimmy's watch to sort of pay for her addiction here. And, even if we ask things like, did you know it was his father's watch? And she sort of, has a moment of clarity. No, I didn't know that. And didn't his dad just pass? I remember Jimmy took leave to go home. So those sorts of things really catch her attention and help her to realize, maybe this isn't as helpful as I thought. And then when we actually start talking about it, we can talk about, why did she start using it? Well, she was, pinned down in this attack on Galatea with this senator, and, they were, being overrun, and it was a really dark situation. They were kind of exhausted. And then suddenly this stuff started going around, and she said, well, it worked. It gave me the energy I needed to get out of that situation. So in her case, she had what she believed was a valid reason to start using it, and it gave her the false impression that this was going to be a long-term benefit kind of thing. And then we can keep sort of, challenging her further and sort of saying, yeah, but what if it's not actually helping people? And and then the more that we sort of drill in, the kind of more uncertain she becomes, and the more, we can actually kind of get her to open up a bit more. And, what if it's putting your squad in danger instead of helping them? Well, that's exactly opposite of what she wants to do. So now she's not 100% certain of herself anymore, and we can start to broach some of that topic. So that's one of the examples that we've got. I'll just sort of run through another one here, which is Yuri. And Yuri, we approach him and he's a little bit distracted. And again, with all these characters, it's really important for us that we have both visual and audio cues. You probably can't hear it right now, but each of the characters has their own sort of music that expresses their kind of emotional state as they're going through. And we also have, sort of the animations that we've seen in the characters, but also there will be, some of them have unkempt uniforms and that's not like them. Okay, why is that different? You might have a character who's always a slob, and that's fine because that's his regular personality. But if it's something that's out of character for somebody, that's a warning sign for you that maybe this is somebody you should be talking to and helping them through their situations. And of course, we start talking to Yuri, and he starts fidgeting, and he's trying to put us off. Yeah, no, I'm fine. Well, okay, doesn't look like it's okay. So again, we can sort of talk to Yuri and okay, maybe start sweating. And again, in the final game, these will all be a little bit more of a slow transition. In fact, with like a situation like Mag, where we're talking about addiction, that might go on for days or even weeks in actual gameplay times. It won't be something you can resolve in a single setting. And some of these things will be here, will be things that are no-win situations. Like if we have a character who's lost a parent, there's no way we can bring that up without making that character sad, but just talking through it with them and being there supporting them will help build resilience in that character and help build more of a trusting relationship with them. So it's a long-term win, even though it's a short-term issue, that we raise their sadness while we deal with it, but then we help out. And we got things, you can hear Yuri's heart beating in the background again and stuff like that sort of help out. And There, like I say, there's in this particular demo, there's just a couple of options so that we can show some positive and negative responses. But in the actual final version, there'll be a lot more leeway in the player's input, choice of subjects that you can talk about and things like that. This is a nod to Dr. B. He loves it when we show this one off because this is one of his favorite ways to, if people are in the middle of a panic attack, to sort of break that and get them back into their sort of logical brain, and that's to ask an off-the-wall question. And so he likes to ask, did you put your shoes on backwards? And our character is like, huh, what's that got to do with anything?
Kind of bring it back.
So we're just trying to, distract him and get him back on track kind of thing. So there you go, Dr. B, you're immortalized. And again, we can choose positive or negative responses, but there's no real wrong response. They all, like if we start to see a response is going in a negative direction, we can always change tack and bring that back. And we've also been very careful, the reality being that, gamers being what they are, some of them will want to try to be as unhelpful to the characters as they can. So we've made sure you can't take it too far off the rails, that basically if you keep choosing negative responses and basically effectively pissing off your characters, then they're going to request a transfer and leave before it, you can't actually wind up traumatizing these characters yourself. Your role as the player is to help support them through that. But hopefully some of the strategies that we're looking at with this will wind up even transcending the game and giving people a bit of a feeling, better understanding of how to communicate with people who are going through similar situations on their own. And that's kind of what we're aiming for. So that's, and again, just each of these in the demos are set up to just give a success case, so it tells you what's going on. In this case, we helped him to navigate his panic attack, and by doing so, we've helped strengthen our trust. We can now see that the trust is much higher than it was before. Helped him to feel more secure in his situation, which will improve his resilience in the future and things like that. And we've also got him to a point where he's willing to acknowledge the issue, and we can hopefully encourage him to seek treatment, and then again support him through that process. And then we've got Yanni here that we can talk to really quickly and get a feeling for what it's like for this particular character this character is missing reports, they're missing tasks, and that's not like this character at all. So we can find out and okay, no, I haven't finished them. That's not like him. But then we can ask him a bit more here about what's going on. Oh, the squad's having a party. and we can ask him, is he going? And he can tell us, oh, he doesn't think so, and okay, well, how come? It's a good way to meet the team, or, whatever we want to say here, and you wind up talking about, yeah, I don't really feel up to it right now. I think I'll get some rest. So he's kind of dodging the topic, and we know things are wrong. And I know, JC, when we first showed this script to you, because this is a young medic who's actually struggling with to cope with the amount of suffering they're seeing, not just on their own team, but in the local population as well, and the fact that they feel their hands are tied, they can't actually get involved as much as they'd like and help out. And I know you were mentioning that when you actually read the script, it kind of really hit home.
It really hit home to me, yeah.
Okay.
Hit home, so just for a background, for me, 27 years in the military. I was released 3 years ago with PTSD. So when I read Yanni's script and see that, there's things that I saw with myself, unable to concentrate, not doing the reports on time, stuff like that, and it really related to me. So.
And yet at the same point, you were also on the other side. You had staff that you were managing who were also suffering in that same way.
Yeah,
so you kind of saw it from both ends.
So as a medic, you have to be strong out on the battlefield, and then you have to be strong once you come in to support the rest of the guys as well, right? Guys and girls. So I was a young medic, and I went out and did the job and listened and, took orders. And then as I grew throughout my career, I was now giving orders, and you see both sides. And I think you learn from, being a youngster and maybe going through stuff, and you wonder, well, they could have done it much, differently or in a better way. And as you grow, you try and, learn from that and use it towards your advantage, or for the troops anyway. So in this case, it's definitely hits home to me.
And that was one of the reasons that we really, my motivations for taking on this game in the first place is that back in the UK, I did a flight simulator called B-17, and I was doing a lot of veteran research. And, I was so inspired by some of the stories that these guys told. I mean, it was clear that we'd read all the books and watched all the movies, but they were only dealing with the few seconds these guys were pulling the trigger. They weren't dealing with how did they make a living for 5 years in theater? How did they get back on that aircraft after their friends had been injured? That kind of thing. And so I was so inspired by that I went off and created an audio book of a series of interviews with British Sherman tank veterans. And I was interviewing those gentlemen at 80 years old, and some of them were still waking up on their bedroom floors trying to get out of their burning tanks just weeks before I talked to them. And I had another gentleman who was a driver who had been knocked out by an 88, so he had the shell come right in through the front of the tank, cross his lap, and out the other side. And he says, I remember looking through the glowing ring out into the world, and he said, I don't remember anything after that. I don't know how I got back to base, don't know how I got out of the tank. And then 35 years later, he's driving his mother in Swindon, and a giant peal of thunder goes off. And the next thing he knows, she's grabbing on his arm saying, stop the car, Brian, stop the car. And he's in full speed reverse running down the street. So it became really clear that these things didn't just go away when they came home, that they lasted a lifetime, and that without sort of appropriate awareness of that. And, of course, meanwhile, we're watching Marvel movies where they total whole blocks of skyscrapers with no concept of who was in that, or no dealing with the repercussions of that afterwards. Like, yeah, I had to do that because I saved the world, but there were 2,000 people in these buildings, and how do I reconcile that? And how do I kind of cope with that? So really felt that our entertainment could do a better job of dealing with some of those consequences. And at the same point, it was a great opportunity to try to educate people, hopefully, about some of the strategies they can use to, communicate with people in their own lives who have, mental health challenges and that sort of thing. I guess open the floor up a little bit if anybody has any questions or anything like that. Okay.
I can't really see the circle with the sections. Would you mind going through that?
So this is what we call our emotional state matrix. We're still playing with the interface of how much we want to show to the player at any given time, how much sort of insight we want to give them into that. But basically the gist of it is that it measures their emotional magnitude on each of the 8 axes. So there's joy, trust, fear, surprise, grief, disgust, anger, and interest. The characters have this emotional state matrix, actually sort of loosely based on Robert Plutchik's theory of emotions, that acts like a color wheel, and you can blend the emotions to create secondary and tertiary feelings, so that we can express sort of over 80 different feelings in our characters. And then each character also has their own personality, which is again based on sort of the Hexaco personality model. It has 6 different axes of different personality traits and magnitudes of those. So that basically a different event may affect somebody completely differently because their personality may be different. So going to a party may inspire joy in one character, whereas it may inspire anxiety in another based on how extroverted they are and all sorts of other different traits and things that that character has. So those are just some of the metrics that we use to guide the player as to how the character is feeling at any given time. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
I like how you have the sort of effect that someone's mental state. Sorry. I like how you have someone's mental state affects their performance in the game, and that reminds me of XCOM.
Yes.
And that kind of made me think about how characters in XCOM. I can't remember if it's in any of the base games, but some characters can form bonds with another character.
That's right.
And their performance increases if they're paired up together.
Correct.
And then if one person goes down, the other person has a chance of, well, they don't take it very well.
Yep.
So
For sure.
this game kind of have something similar,
A-
not exactly the same, but the characters can connect.
Absolutely. So there's a full web of relationships with your characters in the barracks. They all have, in fact, even between players as well, not just with your own characters. But they'll all form a web of relationships. So some of them will form synergies that work better together. Others will sort of distrust each other and not really like to be on the field together. And some of them will form personal attachments, friendships, even potentially romantic attachments, that sort of thing. And so, yes, there will be implications. If a character gets hit, wounded, or even killed, certainly that'll affect the web of relationships and their barracks as a whole. But also that community is really part of the resiliency and the supportive network too. So the more relationships your character has, the better supported they are, the quicker the recovery from different circumstances is. So fostering the formation of relationships, positive relationships in your barracks is something you want to do, whether that's getting them out in activities, giving them some downtime together, whether that's sort of resolving disputes that may sort of start to cause resentment and eat away at those relationships. And then of course every time you bring in a new character, it's going to completely change the dynamic of your barracks, of your squad as well. So you'll have to kind of relearn all those patterns as they reform with each new character.
Is each character special designed, or are there is there random parts, like story-wise, or
So,
maybe appearance-wise?
yeah, so basically the question was, is every character unique, or are there story characters? And the answer to that is both. So there are some story characters that you'll deal with in the game that'll be sort of temporarily on loan to you for certain missions and things like that. But as this is an MMO, everybody's character is completely unique. So we have, what underpins the game is what we call our insight engine technology, and it gives all the characters a unique personality and background and history and life experiences and even ongoing things. So it's a little bit, you mentioned XCOM before, it's a little bit like XCOM crossed with The Sims Online. You can just follow the soap operas of your characters as they evolve, and it's just sort of a neat thing to watch at the same point. But yeah, every one of them is going to be completely unique in terms of their motivation, in terms of what they're after, in terms of the personalities. So they'll all react somewhat differently to different circumstances. So it really is, and your characters will be different than my characters. So while I can give you guidance on, if you've got an angry character, you can try this, it may not necessarily work because they may be angry for a completely different reason, or with certainly different triggers and different things that sort of cause that. So it's going to be a bit of a learning experience for people to sort of get to know their characters. I think there was a question over here.
Well, I'm curious.
Sir.
How much do you anticipate the characters will change? Because I saw there's plus 10 some characteristic, and I was just curious how you're playing. Because I know one of the challenges with this type of games is the potential for the backstory and
Yep.
and the dialogue to expand exponentially. So I'm just curious how
So the characters' personalities can involve certainly like major trauma or major incidents can radically shift their personality and their motivations. So that's certainly an aspect. But on a day-to-day basis, what happens is their emotional matrices, sort of get deflected. If I just sort of call this one up here. So for instance, if Mag here didn't like a spider and she saw a spider, she'd have a baseline of her fear level, and then she'd get a spike, because she saw the spider, and it would very quickly, again, gravitate back towards her base level. But if there was something, particularly traumatic event, that could not only cause a spike, but it might also shift the underlying base, value of her particular fear level. So she might be naturally more fearful now. Until she was able to work through that and resolve that kind of thing. So sometimes it's a temporary change, sometimes it's a permanent change, and the magnitude, for instance, if she loses a parent, the grief will go up, and that may be a slower recovery than the recovery of the fear from seeing a spider, because that's a very minor event compared to losing a parent in her case. For another character, that may not be if they have a traumatic incident involving spiders as a kid or something. But yeah.
Sorry, are the events for characters, are they all planned, or is it like one person can, like for Maggie, for one playthrough, is it possible for her to lose a parent in, say, my playthrough, but for yours, she doesn't?
So only I will ever have Maggie. The question is, can Maggie lose her parent in everybody else's playthrough? And the reality is that every character is unique in this case. So only I, unless Maggie was a story character, in which case she wasn't part of our squad, she's part of the bigger global story, and then yeah, she can have an event that affects her on everybody's build. But if she's just one of my characters that I'm operating with in the game, then no, only I will have Mag. So the things that happen to Mag will be unique to me. And your character will go through its own life experiences, which will be unique to you. Now, some of those might be shared life experiences. For instance, if we go to the barracks here, for instance, in the guild hall, we can actually go to the social store and buy a couple of different events. So we can buy a funeral, for instance. So if we've lost a character in combat, this will help give the rest of our characters closure. It'll also help, any of the other characters to recover a little more quickly. But any other player who enters the guild hall while this event is on will get the same benefit. But their characters will actually interact with our characters at this event. And same thing if we might want to say throw a party, for instance, for the characters and actually get them, a bit of downtime, that kind of thing. So again, blowing off steam and reducing the stress levels of some of our characters. So again, if you and I both attend this event, looks like I've got 5 minutes to wrap up. But if you and I both attend this event, then it's the sort of thing that our characters could interact and actually have something that brings us in. For instance, I might have a character afterwards who goes, I had my watch at the party and I can't find it. Now I have to ask all the other guild mates, okay, was anybody at the party? Did anybody's characters find a watch? And now we're becoming part of the story ourselves, interacting, trying to solve this problem, as well as just the characters themselves. So there's lots of different levels that we'll have the characters interacting on for sure. Okay, I guess I'm supposed to wrap up, so thank you very much. If anybody has any more questions, I'm more than happy to sort of go more in depth. I'm sorry that was a bit of a scattered demonstration, but hopefully got enough of a flavor to see sort of what we're doing. And yeah, we're actually hoping to get this. This is our PAX West demo that was our pre-alpha playable vertical slice, and we're hoping to get that on Steam as a demo in the next sort of couple of weeks. We're just in the review process right now because it's really important to us to involve people in the development process. So, certainly follow us on social media and we'll let you know when that's available to get your hands on. Perfect. Thank you.